Picture this. You're at a party, having the time of your life with this amazing person who seems to understand your deepest thoughts. They're asking all the right questions, making you feel like you're the most fascinating human on earth. You exchange numbers, make plans for coffee, and you're already imagining this incredible friendship blossoming. Then, radio silence. Complete ghost mode. They vanish like they were never there in the first place. Your texts, left on read. Your calls, straight to voicemail. You start wondering if you imagined the whole thing or if you somehow committed some unforgivable social crime without realizing it. But wait, there's more. 3 weeks later, this same person texts you out of nowhere with a deep, thoughtful message about something you mentioned in passing at that party. They remembered every detail, they've been thinking about it, and they want to continue that conversation like no time has passed at all. What in the world is going on here? Are they playing games? Are they crazy? Are they from another planet? No. You've just encountered one of the rarest personality types on the planet, an INFJ. And buckle up, because what you experienced was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to their mind-bending, logic-defying behavior. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive into the most confusing personality type you'll ever meet. I'm talking about INFJs, people who are rarer than natural redheads, four-leaf clovers, and honest politicians combined. We're talking about 1 to 3% of the entire human population here. 1. They're introverts who actually love people, but not really. Okay, let's start with the big one that confuses literally everyone. INFJs are introverts, right? So they should hate people and prefer staying home with their cats, reading books, and avoiding all human contact. Well, not exactly. Here's where it gets weird. INFJs genuinely love people. I'm talking about a deep, soul-level appreciation for humanity. They're fascinated by what makes people tick. They care deeply about others' well-being, and they often choose careers in counseling, social work, or other people-focused fields. But, and this is a massive but, they also need tons of alone time to recharge. It's like they're emotional sponges that soak up everyone else's feelings, thoughts, and energy. After a day of being around people, they're completely drained and need to retreat to their fortress of solitude to recover. This creates some seriously confusing situations. An INFJ might be the life of the party one night, connecting with everyone on a deep level, making people feel heard and understood. Then the next day they'll completely disappear. They won't answer texts, they'll decline invitations, and they might even avoid eye contact if they bump into you at the grocery store. People think, what did I do wrong? Why are they ignoring me? But here's the thing, it's not about you at all. It's about their need to process all the emotional information they've absorbed and restore their energy levels. Think of it like this. Imagine your phone battery drains super quickly when you use certain apps. You love those apps, they're incredibly useful and enjoyable, but you can't use them 24/7 or your phone dies. That's an INFJ with social interaction. 2. They can predict the future, sort of. Now, before you start thinking INFJs are psychic or something, let me clarify. They can't tell you next week's lottery numbers or predict natural disasters. But they have this uncanny ability to see patterns and predict outcomes that seems almost supernatural to everyone else. INFJs have what's called dominant introverted intuition. Sounds fancy, right? Basically, it means their brains are constantly processing information in the background, looking for patterns, connections, and possibilities that others miss. They'll walk into a room and immediately sense tension between two people who seem to be getting along fine on the surface. They'll predict that a friend's relationship is going to end months before it actually happens. They'll know that a project at work is going to fail even though everyone else is optimistic about it. Here's a real example. An INFJ friend of mine once told me that our mutual friend's new boyfriend was trouble. She couldn't explain why. He seemed nice enough, treated our friend well, and everyone else liked him. But she had this gut feeling something was off. 6 months later, we found out he'd been lying about pretty much everything: his job, his education, even his name. This ability to see things that haven't happened yet makes other people uncomfortable. They think INFJs are being negative, paranoid, or overly critical. But more often than not, the INFJ's predictions come true, which then freaks people out even more. The thing is, INFJs aren't actually predicting the future. They're just really good at reading between the lines, picking up on subtle cues, and seeing where current patterns are likely to lead. Their brains are like supercomputers running complex algorithms in the background, analyzing data that most people don't even notice they're receiving. 3. They're perfectionists who never feel good enough. Here's another contradiction that drives people crazy. INFJs set impossibly high standards for themselves, work incredibly hard to meet those standards, and then still feel like failures even when they succeed. Let me paint you a picture. An INFJ spends weeks preparing for a presentation at work. They research every possible angle, anticipate every potential question, and practice until they could give the presentation in their sleep. The day comes, they nail it, everyone's impressed, and their boss congratulates them on an excellent job. You'd think they'd be happy, right? No. They're focused on the one slide that was slightly off, the question they stumbled on for half a second, and how they could have explained that one concept better. While everyone else is celebrating their success, they're already planning how to do it better next time. This perfectionism stems from their deep desire to make a meaningful impact. INFJs don't just want to do well, they want to create something that matters, something that helps people, something that makes the world a little bit better. When they feel like they've fallen short of that ideal, it doesn't matter how much external validation they receive. What makes this even more confusing to others is that INFJs often won't share their struggles with perfectionism. They'll smile and say thanks when complimented, but internally they're having a completely different conversation. This creates a disconnect where people think the INFJ is confident and has it all together, when in reality they're their own harshest critic. It's like they're running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. Every time they reach a goal, they immediately set a new, higher standard for themselves. It's exhausting for them and confusing for everyone watching. For they plan everything but are totally spontaneous. This one's a real head-scratcher. INFJs are known for being organized planners who like structure and predictability. They'll have their weeks mapped out, their goals clearly defined, and their schedules color-coded. But then, out of nowhere, they'll completely change course and do something totally spontaneous. I know an INFJ who had her entire summer planned out: vacation dates, work projects, social events, the whole 9 yards. Then one Tuesday morning, she woke up and decided to drive to the coast. Just like that. She called in sick to work, packed a bag, and was gone for 3 days. Her friends couldn't understand it. This was the same person who usually planned bathroom breaks. Here's what's really happening. INFJs plan because it gives them a sense of security and control. But they also have this deep need for authentic experiences and meaningful moments. When they feel like their planned life is becoming too routine or disconnected from their values, they'll break free in dramatic fashion. It's like they're two different people, the responsible planner and the free-spirited adventurer, living in the same body. Most of the time, the planner is in control. But when the adventurer has been ignored for too long, they stage a coup and take over. This creates confusion because people expect consistency. If someone's a planner, they should always plan. If someone's spontaneous, they should always be spontaneous. But INFJs are both, depending on what their inner compass is telling them they need at that moment. The spontaneity usually serves a purpose too. That impromptu trip to the coast? It wasn't just random. The INFJ was feeling disconnected from nature and needed to reset. The sudden decision to take an art class? They were feeling creatively stifled and needed an outlet. Their spontaneous actions almost always align with their deeper values and needs, even if they can't explain it logically at the time. 5. They're empaths who can be surprisingly cold. This trait probably confuses people more than any other. INFJs are known for being incredibly empathetic. They feel other people's emotions as if they were their own. They're natural counselors, and they have this amazing ability to make people feel understood and validated. But then, sometimes they can seem surprisingly cold or detached. They'll cut people out of their lives without warning, show little emotion during situations that would devastate others, or respond to someone's problems with what seems like indifference. Let me explain what's really happening here. INFJs feel everything deeply, and I mean everything. They absorb emotions from everyone around them like some kind of emotional vacuum cleaner. Over time, this can become overwhelming, especially if they're around negative or draining people. When an INFJ seems cold, it's usually because they've hit their emotional capacity and they're protecting themselves. It's like their empathy has a circuit breaker that trips when the system gets overloaded. They're not actually heartless, they're just emotionally maxed out and need to shut down temporarily to recover. There's also something called the INFJ door slam, when an INFJ completely cuts someone out of their life. To outsiders, this can seem harsh and sudden. But from the INFJ's perspective, they've usually been dealing with a toxic or harmful relationship for a long time, trying to help, trying to understand, trying to make it work. The door slam happens when they finally realize that the relationship is beyond repair and they need to protect their own well-being. It's not that they stop caring, they care too much, which is exactly why they have to create distance. They know that if they don't protect themselves, they'll get sucked back into trying to fix something that can't be fixed. 6. They're social chameleons who lose themselves. INFJs have this amazing ability to adapt to different social situations. They can be professional and polished in a work meeting, then warm and nurturing with friends, then intellectual and analytical in an academic discussion. They seem to have a version of themselves for every occasion. This social flexibility is actually a survival mechanism. Because INFJs are so sensitive to other people's emotions and expectations, they've learned to adjust their presentation to create harmony and avoid conflict. They become what they think others need them to be. But here's where it gets problematic. Sometimes INFJs adapt so much that they lose touch with who they really are. They become so good at being what others expect that they forget what they actually want or need. I've talked to INFJs who describe feeling like they're wearing different masks for different people, and after a while, they're not sure which face is really theirs. They might be the supportive friend who always has time to listen, the dedicated employee who never says no to extra work, and the easygoing family member who avoids rocking the boat. But none of these roles fully represent their authentic self. This creates an internal crisis because INFJs value authenticity above almost everything else. They want to be genuine and real, but their natural tendency to harmonize with others pulls them toward adaptation and people-pleasing. The confusion for others comes when the INFJ suddenly needs to retreat and figure out who they really are underneath all these different personas. They might start setting boundaries, saying no to things they used to agree to, or expressing opinions they've kept hidden. People think, "Where did this come from? You were never like this before." But the INFJ is just trying to reconnect with their authentic self. 7. They're helpers who hate being helped. This one's particularly frustrating for people who care about INFJs. These are people who will drop everything to help a friend in need, who notice when others are struggling even before they ask for help, and who have a natural gift for making people feel better. But when they're the ones who need help, forget about it. They'll insist they're fine, reject offers of assistance, and struggle through problems alone rather than burden anyone else. Even when they're clearly overwhelmed, stressed, or dealing with serious issues, they'll maintain that they can handle it themselves. This happens for several reasons. First, INFJs are used to being the strong one, the one who has it all together, the one others turn to for support. Admitting they need help feels like they're failing in their role as the helper. Second, they're hyper-aware of how much emotional energy it takes to truly help someone, and they don't want to put that burden on others. They think, "I know how draining it is when people come to me with their problems, so I won't do that to anyone else." Third, INFJs often feel like their problems are too complex or too internal for others to understand. They might be dealing with existential questions, creative blocks, or deep emotional processing that they don't think others can relate to. And finally, there's a control aspect. When INFJs help others, they can manage the interaction and ensure a positive outcome. When they're the ones receiving help, they lose that control, which makes them uncomfortable. This creates frustration for friends and family who want to support the INFJ but keep getting shut out. They see someone they care about struggling and feel helpless to do anything about it. The INFJ's independence can come across as stubborn pride or a lack of trust in the relationship. 8. They're deep thinkers who can't explain their thoughts. Last but definitely not least, we have the trait that probably causes the most miscommunication. INFJs are incredibly deep, complex thinkers who have trouble explaining their thought processes to others. Their minds work differently from most people's. While others might think in a linear fashion, a leads to see INFJs think in webs of interconnected ideas, patterns, and possibilities. They make intuitive leaps that skip several logical steps, arriving at conclusions through a process that's hard to trace or explain. When someone asks an INFJ why they think something or how they came to a particular conclusion, they often struggle to provide a satisfactory answer. They might say things like, "I just have a feeling," or "It's hard to explain," or "I can't put it into words." This can be frustrating for people who want clear, logical explanations. Here's an example. An INFJ might read a news article and immediately understand the broader implications for society, see connections to historical patterns, and predict potential consequences. But when asked to explain their analysis, they struggle because their understanding came through intuitive synthesis rather than step-by-step reasoning. This creates problems in work situations, relationships, and group discussions. People might dismiss the INFJ's insights because they can't provide logical backing, even though their conclusions often prove to be correct. It's like the INFJ's brain is running advanced software that produces accurate results, but the process is hidden from view. They know what they know, but they can't always show their work. This trait also makes INFJs feel misunderstood and isolated. They have rich inner worlds full of complex ideas and insights, but they struggle to share these thoughts with others in a way that makes sense. They might feel like they're speaking a different language or like there's a barrier between their internal experience and their ability to communicate it. Why these traits develop. Understanding why INFJs develop these seemingly contradictory traits helps explain why they can be so confusing to others. Most of these behaviors are actually adaptive responses to being a highly sensitive, intuitive person in a world that often values different qualities. INFJs are born with heightened sensitivity to emotions, patterns, and environmental stimuli. From a young age, they absorb more information and feel things more intensely than their peers. To cope with this overwhelming input, they develop sophisticated internal systems for processing and managing their experiences. The contradictions arise because INFJs are trying to balance multiple needs simultaneously. Their need for deep connection with their need for solitude, their desire to help others with their need for self-protection, their drive for authenticity with their instinct to maintain harmony. These traits also develop because INFJs often grow up feeling different from those around them. They learn to adapt, to hide parts of themselves, and to manage their intensity in ways that won't make others uncomfortable. Over time, this creates the complex, sometimes contradictory behaviors that confuse people. How to better understand the INFJs in your life. If you have an INFJ in your life, whether it's a friend, family member, romantic partner, or colleague, understanding these traits can dramatically improve your relationship with them. First, don't take their need for alone time personally. When an INFJ withdraws, it's not about you, it's about their need to recharge and process. Give them space without making them feel guilty about it. Second, trust their intuitive insights even when they can't fully explain them. INFJs have a track record of being right about things they just know, so their unexplained hunches are worth considering. Third, understand that their perfectionism comes from a deep desire to make a positive impact, not from arrogance or never being satisfied. Support their efforts while helping them recognize their achievements. Fourth, appreciate their adaptability while encouraging their authenticity. Let them know that you value who they really are, not just the version of themselves they think you want to see. Finally, be patient with their communication style. If an INFJ can't explain something clearly, it doesn't mean their thought isn't valid. Sometimes the best way to understand an INFJ is to listen not just to their words, but to the emotions and intentions behind them. The beauty in the contradictions. While these INFJ traits might seem confusing or even frustrating, they're actually what makes INFJs such valuable and unique individuals. Their contradictions aren't flaws to be fixed. They're features that allow them to navigate complex situations and connect with people in meaningful ways. Their ability to be both introverted and people-focused makes them excellent counselors and advocates. Their combination of planning and spontaneity allows them to be both reliable and adaptable. Their empathy, even when it seems to disappear, helps them support others while protecting their own well-being. The key is understanding that INFJs operate from a different framework than most people. They're not trying to be difficult or confusing, they're just responding to the world through their unique lens of sensitivity, intuition, and deep caring. Living as an INFJ in an extroverted world. For INFJs themselves, understanding these traits can be incredibly validating. Many INFJs go through life feeling like something's wrong with them because their natural responses don't match what society expects. Knowing that these contradictions are normal for their personality type can help INFJs embrace their complexity rather than fighting it. They can learn to work with their traits rather than against them, finding ways to honor both sides of their contradictory nature. For example, an INFJ can plan regular alone time into their schedule so they don't have to feel guilty about withdrawing. They can learn to explain their intuitive insights in terms that others can understand. They can set boundaries around their helping tendencies while still supporting the people they care about. The bigger picture. Understanding INFJ traits isn't just about understanding one personality type, it's about recognizing and appreciating human complexity in general. We all have contradictions, we all have traits that might not make sense to others, and we all have unique ways of processing and responding to the world around us. The goal isn't to put people in boxes or to excuse problematic behavior, but to develop empathy and understanding for the different ways people experience life. When we can appreciate the logic behind seemingly illogical behavior, we build stronger relationships and create more inclusive communities. INFJs, with their rare combination of traits, remind us that people are complex, that surface behavior doesn't always reflect internal experience, and that what seems confusing to us might make perfect sense to someone else. Conclusion. So there you have it, 8 INFJ traits that make absolutely no sense to most people, but actually make perfect sense when you understand the underlying motivations and needs driving them. From being introverted people lovers to perfectionist helpers who won't accept help themselves, INFJs embody contradictions that can be confusing but are ultimately what makes them such unique and valuable individuals. If you're an INFJ watching this, I hope you feel seen and understood. Your contradictions aren't flaws, They're superpowers that allow you to navigate the world in your own beautiful, complex way. Embrace your complexity, work with your traits rather than against them, and remember that your unique perspective is needed in this world. If you're not an INFJ but have one in your life, I hope this video helps you understand them better. Be patient with their contradictions, trust their insights, give them the space they need, and appreciate the depth they bring to your relationship. And for everyone else, remember that we all have traits that might not make sense to others. The key to better relationships and a more understanding world is curiosity rather than judgment, empathy rather than criticism, and patience rather than frustration. Understanding personality differences isn't about excusing behavior or putting people in boxes. It's about building bridges of understanding that help us connect with each other more authentically and compassionately. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the mysterious world of INFJ traits. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. What INFJ trait confuses you the most? Or if you're an INFJ, which trait do you feel most misunderstood about? Don't forget to like this video if it helped you understand the INFJs in your life better, subscribe for more personality insights, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest content exploring the beautiful complexity of human nature. Until next time, keep embracing your uniqueness and appreciating the uniqueness in others. See you in the next video.